Well, joining me is my panel, Gemma Tognini from GT Communications and Sky News contributor Caroline De Russo. I want to ask you about Jimmy Kimmel. He's made his return to late-night TV after being suspended by the ABC, and he gave a tearful apology for comments last week, blaming the MAGA movement for weaponising Charlie Kirk's death. Here's his apology.
Erica Kirk forgave the man who shot her husband. She forgave him. That is an example we should follow. Yeah. If you believe in the teachings of Jesus, as I do, there it was. That's it. A selfless act of grace, forgiveness from a grieving widow. It touched me deeply. And I hope it touches many. And if there's anything we should take from this tragedy to carry forward, I hope it can be that.
Now, he also added that he'd reached out to Erica Kirk and that he regretted his comments had been taken the wrong way. Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social just before Kimmel went back on air, so that's before that was broadcast. Trump wrote, "I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back. The White House was told by ABC his show was cancelled. Something happened between then and now because his audience is gone and his talent was never there." So that's where it's all fallen. I want to ask you, Gemma, this week has been all about forgiveness, that inspiring message from Erica Kirk at the memorial service. Should Jimmy Kimmel be forgiven?
Well, of course he should be forgiven. None of us deserve forgiveness if we want to get really granular and biblical about it, James. None of us deserves forgiveness. But the narrative around why he was taken off air was false. It was a lie. He wasn't cancelled. He wasn't, he met the consequences of his actions. His free speech wasn't being stifled. He enjoyed the privilege of free speech and then met the consequences when his comments were incongruent with the views of his employer. That is something that people all around the world have to consider in their daily lives. He is not excluded from that. So my takeaway from this whole episode is, again, the double standard, I suppose, from many on the political left, not all, but many on the political left, who are all of a sudden interested in making sure that people aren't, censored and silenced and cancelled the way that the current president of the United States was before he was re-elected. If you recall, he was dumped off Twitter. You had people in the UK who were debanked. There is a serious disconnect in reality here. So yes, of course he should be forgiven. He deserves it just as much as anyone else does. But let's not pretend he's the victim here.
What do you think, Caroline? Are you glad to see him back on air?
I'm fine with it. And it won't surprise you that Gem and I would be on pretty much a unity ticket there. And and I think it is good. I think it is good for television, broadly speaking, to have a divergence of views. What he said was pretty gauche, and I think it's a reminder to everyone who likes to play A grade that a week on the bench will remind you that you're not immortal. So yes. I think it was probably a good bit of thinking time for him, get him to cool his heels, and look, hopefully going forward he will just take that extra moment to think before he opens his mouth. But James, you and I have been around commentary and politics long enough, and any time you get an apology out of a lefty, it's a good day.
Indeed. You're not wrong about that. All right, let's talk about Victoria, where apologies have been due for a long time. I don't know that any will be forthcoming, though, from Jacinta Allen. Some of Australia's largest corporations have warned her, she of course is the Premier, that her plan to create a right to work from home will drive businesses out of the state. The Premier promises to enshrine a right to work from home for 2 days a week. Gemma, would you be happy to run a business in Victoria with these laws coming into effect?
I did have an office in Victoria very briefly a long time ago, James, but it wasn't really the right fit, so we decided to wrap that up pretty quickly. The short answer is no, for a variety of reasons, but objectively it is not an environment that says to business owners of any size or scale, we see you, we understand you, we want to help you thrive and, build into the communities that we have here in Victoria. It is an extraordinary state of affairs when the government is trying to legislate how private enterprise employs its people. And I mean, imagine the examples that have already been raised by companies such as Wesfarmers that employ people at Bunnings and things like that. Like, you can't do your job 2 days a week from home if you're working on a shop floor, for example. Even as a journalist, I mean, I haven't been a working journalist for very long time, let's call it 22 years, but you can't work in a TV newsroom and do your job from home 2 days a week. And I would argue that that is not where the best results come. I think this is a terrible decision. It's an ideological decision, and it's not a decision that's in the best interests of all Victorians.
Gemma, I'm trying to do the math. You must have started in journalism as a very small child.
I was 8.
Caroline,
I was 8, James.
Of course you were. Caroline, Victoria already has the highest rate of unemployment in the nation, 15 of the last 17 months. This plan is not going to help. And I can't understand why you would take an abnormal period, i.e. the pandemic, and try to normalise what was done then as now a right.
Precisely. And this is an example of, well, not even competitive federalism, but uncompetitive federalism. And the simple fact of the matter is, James, if you can do your job from home, you can do it from outside of Victoria. And that's what particularly those national businesses will do, because ultimately this is about cost base. And if you can do the same job from another state, and frankly, probably for the same pay to the employee. So this lowering the costs is not about what you pay your employee, it's about the associated cost with it, well then businesses will do it. And we already know that businesses do that. And I remember having a conversation only about 12 months ago with someone who was a national managing partner, and the payroll tax rates in Victoria are the most punitive in the country. So they were already employing people in other states to cover off on work in Victoria, so they didn't have to hire people in Victoria. So getting back to your original question, no, it is not going to help the unemployment rate, mate.
All right, one more quick question before we go to a break. Still in Victoria, this just caught my eye. A group of concerned Melbourne dads have launched a series of night patrols of their suburb in an effort to deter criminals. They're calling themselves Dad's Army, and they operate in a quite affluent inner suburb, Melbourne, where residents apparently face weekly home invasions. One of the dads told local media, and I'm quoting, "We're not trained to do this. We don't really have any specific techniques or tactics, but when we see any suspicious behaviour, we either report it or we do something to deter whoever it is to bugger off." Gemma, good idea or bad idea?
Well, I want to applaud these men for standing up and being men, and obviously stepping into a gap that's clearly not there for whatever problems exist in the Victoria police system. But it's obviously fraught with danger, because while they're well intended and absolutely admirable, you don't know what you're going to meet, and they're not, as you said, they're not trained, they're not prepared. But what a terrible set of circumstances in which they feel that they have to do this to protect their neighbourhoods. I've got friends who live around the Melbourne area, and I can vouch for the fact that what they're doing is required. One of my friends said, "We don't even bother reporting home invasions anymore, or thefts and breaks and enters. They're just so common." Again, what's happening down there, and how come it's been allowed to escalate to this degree?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to leave it there, but thanks so much to both of you, Gemma and Caroline. Appreciate you joining me tonight.
Thanks.